Hi, I'm Tom Jones. Thanks for joining me again. I'm so glad you're here. We're going to continue now with another lesson on watercolor painting from me, and this is going to be a lesson on how to do evergreen trees. There are many types of trees, leafy trees and so forth, and I've painted them all, but I wanted to show you how to do evergreen trees in this case. There's a tendency sometimes when people want to paint the evergreen trees that they want to paint all of the boughs. They want to show all of the tree trunks and all of the boughs. I'm going to show you a simple way of approaching a forested area of evergreen trees so that it makes it look realistic and very simple for you. I'm going to start by putting some distant trees in this particular scene. You'll notice here that I have a very rough sketch of just the tops of evergreen trees. What you don't see is you don't see a sketch in the background where I'm going to have another layer of trees. In this case, I want to put in a very faint layer, and I'm going to use a very light color, maybe some cerulean blue with just a touch of green in it, and that's going to give me a distant layer of trees. Then what I'll do is I'll take a moment and dry that with my hair dryer, and then I'll come in and I'll put in a closer area of trees that are going to be a darker tonal value, more of a greenish, deeper greenish blue color. So that's exactly the plan that we're going to look for today. Stay with me on this. I'm going to get started right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my palette and I'm going to mix up some cerulean blue. Now for you beginners, cerulean blue is a very light blue. It's your lightest of all your blues. It's a very beautiful, clean blue color. You can see that in my palette, how beautiful that is. Now what I want to do is I'm going to add just a little touch of green to that, and that's going to give me a nice light value. I'm going to throw into the mix a lot of water because I want this to be a very light, pale value. I want the trees in the distance to appear farther away. Remember, if you want to show distance in your paintings, colors in the background should be cooler as a general rule and warmer as we come forward. So I'm putting this as a lighter value in the distance. Watch what happens now when I come over to my paper. Even though there's not a sketch here, I'm going to put in this nice light value. Wow, you say, he's not painting trees, he's just putting color down. Watch what happens. I'm going to take my liner brush and I'm going to paint just the tops of these trees. Watch what happens. So it's just a suggestion that there are some trees here in the distance. I'm going to come back, get a little bit smaller flat brush. This is a 3/4 inch flat brush as opposed to the 1 inch flat brush that I was using. Now watch what happens. I have a very light value of color, but watch how I put in the look of these trees in the distance. I'm in essence really stamping. I've got my brush on end and I'm simply suggesting some areas of tree back here in the distance. Again, these are the same types of trees that are going to be in the foreground in front of it. They're just farther back, so they're going to appear to be lighter. Watch what I do. I'm going to continue on. I'm going to take my time with this because I want you to follow this through, and I'd like you to try this at home on your own. Watch what happens. Now, I've used my flat brush. I can come back in now if I want, and I can simply come in and use my script brush. Okay? This is a script brush that gives me a nice, very, very thin line. It also can give me a fatter line if I want to do tree trunks as an example. So this end gives me this nice fine line, but I also can do thicker lines for tree branches or for tree trunks. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little spray bottle and I'm going to just touch the top areas of a couple of places where I've put the color, and watch what happens. The water, when it hits the edge of the paint, is going to have part of this tree area disappear. The reason it works so well is I'm working on a 15-degree angle. In other words, this table that you see in front of me is tilted slightly so that if I put water here, the water and the pigment run down. It makes it easier for me to take my brush as an example, what we call a thirsty brush. I take the excess color and water out. Watch what happens. I can use it like a sponge and pick up the excess color that way. If my painting is laying flat, then the water puddles and I have a more difficult time in having the water and the pigment directed to one area. So see how I've softened this one area. Now I'll continue painting along just a little bit more here. And I'm going to paint what I call Charlie Brown trees, meaning that on some sides of the trees there's more boughs than others. Some of them might even have two heads. Okay? The Charlie Brown trees are more interesting, more branches on one side than the other, as opposed to the trees you see around the holidays that are perfectly manicured, or the ones that may be in your neighborhood that are perfectly manicured. These are trees in nature. So this is how they would look in nature. They're kind of rough, they're kind of beautiful. I've often said that the beauty of nature is not in its perfection. The beauty of nature is in its imperfection. That's what makes it unique and beautiful to me, anyway. Now, continue painting a little bit more. A little more color of this lighter value of blue-green, and I'm going to come in and just do a little bit more stamping with this particular brush, this 3/4 inch brush. See how I've done that? Now what I'll do is I'll fill in some of this area, and just see how I'm just handling that brush now? I'm just sort of stirring gravy in the skillet, sort of. If you were stirring gravy in a skillet, I guess that's how you do it. But anyway, see how I've done that? I'm going to take a little more time here, spend a little more time with you on this particular area of tree. I want to make this right for you so that you can see exactly what I'm doing. And I've left some space. See how the tops are not even all the way across? It goes up and then comes back down, and it comes up and back down and so forth. The beauty of nature, again, is that it's not in perfection. We don't want this level all the way across. It wouldn't look that natural. It wouldn't look that way in nature, as an example. So we're going to do this a little bit more here, a little bit more interest here on the boughs, and that's basically how we would handle that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to dry this, and I'm going to come back to you in just a moment, and then what we'll do is we'll put another layer of trees in front of this. But again, I wanted to show you how by just adding some water to this one area, see how nice that looks? We've added some water here, and all of a sudden we've got light area where there's soft edge and then hard edge going on. Now you have to be very careful not to do this everywhere. If you have this soft edge everywhere, then it looks mundane. If you have it just a couple of areas, then it becomes unique. Okay? So stay with me. I'm going to dry this, and then I'm going to come back, and then we'll put the other layer of trees in front of it. I'll be right back. Hi, welcome back. While I was away, I dried this area with my hair dryer, and the reason that I did that, I'm going to put another layer of trees in front of this lighter layer of trees you just saw me do. It has to be dry, because if I want a nice sharp edge on these particular trees that are going to be in front of these trees that are behind here, it needs to be totally dry. Otherwise, the color I put in front will just melt into the lighter color, and you won't distinguish one area of tree from another. So that was the reason for it. So anyway, welcome back. Let's go ahead and start with this area of tree in front of it. Again, these are evergreen trees. I'm going to take and mix up, again, the same colors that I'm using. This dark green, which is hooker green deep, and my dark blue, which is ultramarine blue deep. And I want a nice, rich, dark, evergreen look to it. So watch what I do again. I'm going to come in, and I'm going to just lay in some color, and I'm using my brush, again, just to stamp. This is my 3/4 inch flat brush. So I'm going to just stamp, just as I did with the area up here with the lighter trees. Now, notice again, I'm not putting in boughs and so forth. Oh, yeah, you'll see a few here and there. But as a general rule, I'm not showing all the boughs. What I want here is I want an area of forest, not individual trees. I think you get that picture. All right, a little bit more mixing color. You'll notice that I'm always in this palette mixing fresh color. I love my colors to be nice and fresh. And I'll have a little surprise. I'll throw a little surprise in this mix for you in just a moment. Okay, so I'm going to just, again, continue stamping. Then I'll come back and I'll get my script brush, I call it, my script brush again. And I'm going to just come in here, and I'm going to just take my script brush and add in some smaller areas of trees. I can get a nice narrow edge with this particular brush. So I can come in and have all kinds of fun with that. All right, continuing on. Again, I don't want these trees to be straight across the top. I want a lost and found look to it, but I also want a nice design to the top of the trees. So I don't want that uniform look that you might see in your neighborhood. You want basically a a forested look that looks more natural in nature, where all the trees are not the same height. Some are tall, some are short. And I'll also, again, I'll soften some of the edges for you here in a moment so that you get an idea that there is, again, some lost and found and variety going on in this particular painting. Variety of edge, in other words, soft edge and hard edge. So we want that. So stay with me just a moment here. I'm going to have a little surprise for you, just a moment. I'm going to take my brush, and you'll notice how the color here has gotten just a little bluer. I did that on purpose. Watch what I do. I'm going to get some of my rose color. This is called quinacridone rose, but I'm going to introduce just a little bit of that rose color in there. Why did I do that? For two reasons. One, there is a lot of violet in the landscape. Number two, it looks good. So don't be afraid to add a little bit of that violet color in there. Now let me warn you against one thing. Don't get too carried away and add too much violet. Otherwise, the violet will overpower the entire painting. So it's just an accent, that's all. All right, back to the other colors. I'm going to take and just go along here just a couple of minutes, and then I'll soften some of the edge of this color right here. Watch what happens. Again, this spray bottle, just at the top now, I'm not doing it everywhere, just at the top of where the trees are. Not down in here, just at the top edge. And what happens is that now I've got a hard edge and a soft edge going on. So part of the tree area disappeared into the mist, sort of, and then came back out over here with another hard edge on this side. I'll continue on and show you what I'm going to do here. I'm just going to continue on with the same thought pattern, but let me take my time with this. I'm going to just come along here and then do some more trees, put some more trees in over here. And take the edge of your brush, and there's a couple other things you can do. Watch what happens here. I'm going to take the edge of this brush, and I'm just going to pull some of that color up. See how I can do that? And I can create the look of foliage in that area without actually painting the whole tree. So you can see how you can do different things. I'll do it again for you in a moment here. Pick up some of the excess color again. I'm working on an angle. Some of this color runs down, obviously. So what I'll do now is I'll come back in with my liner brush, and we'll add some more little smaller brush strokes to these trees. And then over here, again, I'll take some of this color and watch what happens. I can just pull some of it up with the side of my brush. All I'm doing is I'm putting the side of that brush right on the paper. Okay, you see that? Watch what I do here. This is a lot of fun. Just pull that up. See how I've done that? What happens is some of the hairs are pulling away from the edge of this brush. So when I pull it up, I'll get this effect. Take some of them and add just a little bit of a top to them if you want. Now, let me do one other thing. I want to come in here, and I want to take a couple of these trees, and I'm going to bring them up a little bit higher. Watch what happens. I want to come up above these distant trees. It will appear or give the appearance that those trees are farther back if I do that. Just a few more on this side over here. I like this brush. See how I'm getting a wider brush stroke now? This is called a script brush. And then I can get, if I want, very narrow brush strokes with it. So this works beautifully for me. A little more brush work to bring this out just a little farther down here. But look how I've brought some of these trees higher. I'll do just a couple more. I'll bring a couple more of these trees a little higher. And again, it will give the illusion that there is more distance in my painting. And you can see through the trees in this case. See that? And again, I'm not painting the perfect tree. It's not perfectly manicured. Some of the trees have more branches on one side than the other. I think that's important to keep it as natural looking as possible. Okay? Now, I'm going to surprise you with something else. I'm going to take, you notice I had this spray bottle with water in, didn't you? I've got another spray bottle over here, and this one's got color in it. Watch what happens. I can actually put some color in here and just sort of soften up and add a little more texture into my painting. See what happens? See how I've added texture to the painting now? Now I've given you the illusion that I've got distant trees, and I've given you the illusion that I have trees that are closer. Let's not put too many that are taller, but let's do maybe one more right here. Let's bring this one up a little higher. Just for a little fun, just for the heck of it. And now you can see through those trees and see how much fun that looks. A little bit more action to this particular tree here, meaning a little more action, meaning a little more branches on it, so it appears to be a little bit more tree-like. I don't want to cover up all the background, but I do want just a couple more trees there. All right, now you can see how simple that was. All I did is I took and mixed up some of my light cerulean blue along with some of my green that I had in my palette, my Hooker Green Deep. Got that nice light color. I painted that area first, then I dried it, then I came back with a darker value of the Hooker Green Deep, the Ultramarine Blue Deep, and you'll notice how I added a little bit of rose to that. We can even add just a little bit more in there. Watch what happens. I'll take a little more rose color and add just a little more touch of it in here, just for a little fun. See how beautiful that looks now? That's easy for you to do. Then what we did is we came back in and we softened part of the edge of this forward tree area. Then I brought some of the trees up higher, not everywhere, just a few, so you can still see through and see the distant trees, but just a little higher to give the illusion that there is in fact a forward area of trees. This concludes this particular part of the demonstration. I'm so glad that you joined me today. Thank you again. Take care, and I hope to see you again soon.